So hi and welcome back to my channel Girl on Soapbox. I'm Melissa. So as I ended in my previous video discussing the things that happened before I went into my wilderness season, fully into it, um, in discussing those things, well, you'll see me in the same clothes because I just continued. So I'm just going to continue from where I dropped off, right? And I'm saying, oh my Lord, and that's not even me in real life, right? I'm so sorry. I'm also very tired right now. And I don't want to talk about why I'm so tired. This is just one of the areas like the enemy used against me a lot since my early days, and I am going to have to do a prayer and fast, and I thought that was over with, but it's happening again. But not with anybody harassing me or anything like that, but it's just that I'm just not getting enough sleep. Could put it down to hormones or whatever it is, but I don't want to just do that. Yeah, so by the end of March of 2017, I was involved in all those things: conflict, lawsuit, exhaustion, and then I started to not feel well. I wasn't able to digest my food properly. I realized I was getting allergic to gluten because I couldn't eat flour without a reaction of my joints. At that time, it was just my fingers alone would hurt me and eat me, right? Nothing else. So I was dealing with it. I felt I was dealing with it. I was still smiling, still treating people decently. I wasn't snapping at anybody, and I just compartmentalized it. This is a lawsuit, discussed with the attorney. This is a conflict with my cousin. She's not stopping. So I would go to school, find somewhere to go on a Sunday and study. But I prefer to do it at home because I had all of my study material with me, and because I'm working all week, and if I'm not working, I'm in church. I wanted to be at home. I'm a homey person. I like to be home, and I want to be comfy. I want to be in my shorts and just study and do what I had to do. So one day I went to work, and when I went to work, my boss was preparing for, and I shouldn't be saying boss because I worked on a project and there were several people in this project. She was the person that I answered to when I had to do reports. I did my reports and submitted it to her. But I also had one of the directors was actually our boss who headed up this project, right? So they were having board meeting, and that wasn't part of my portfolio. I didn't have to do anything for board meetings, but I decided to assist because I had worked for that company years and years before, and I'll tell you how I ended up working there a second time. But right now I just want to go down the list. I have a list of about 11 things that happened that should have let me know I was in a wilderness going into, and then I was in a wilderness season, right? But when you're in a situation, sometimes you're not seeing it as a list of things. You are just in it and you're trying to cope and deal with each one as they come up. Fair enough, right? So she was preparing for board meeting, and because I had worked there before, and I was able to assist because I knew what had to be done, so I was assisting her. I got a phone call maybe around 10 o'clock that morning on my cell, and it was that guy that got injured, his sister. I had no idea who his family was. This is a big man in his 50s, right? This wasn't some boy out of school, and this is a man that was working all his life and came to us with all of his work experience and all of that, right? So his sister called, and this woman started to, well, I have to say, cuss me out because her brother got injured. And there was another type of insurance that the employees are responsible for that he didn't have and he didn't want to do. And she's blaming me and said that I should have begged him to do it. And it's like, I said I had meetings, and I had meetings with everybody, and then I met with everybody individually and explained to them the benefit of having these different types of insurance. And your brother said he was not interested. He was listening to other people, but those people, their business was fixed. They know what they were doing, and if they were injured or if they had to stop working, or by the time they retired, they knew where their money was going to come from, right? They were investing their money in real estate and different things like that. So with him, he wasn't doing that. He was dressing and wearing the latest $2,000 sneakers and those jerseys and things like that. And he wasn't married, and he always had a girlfriend with 4 or 5 children. It was just crazy, right? But it wasn't my business. This was just a casual worker. But still, just given my nature, I like to see people's life in order. People put things in order and things turn out good for people. I still spoke to each of them and explained the benefits of putting things in place. I offered to put them on to an insurance agent if they wanted to. It turned out that he had a cousin who was an insurance agent, and I even spoke to her, and she was able to do something for us, right, in our company. So it was weird that his sister called me to blame me and was cussing me out while I was telling her to wait and see what was transpiring through the lawsuit, whatever. But she didn't want to wait. I think she was trying to bully me into probably just settling because they didn't want it to come out that he was negligent, like negligent to the max. Let me tell you what he did. So I think, if I remember well, because it's say way back then, there was a table saw. Normally, what you have to do with a table saw, you have to stop it. If you're going to go adjust the blade, stop it and unplug it. You don't just stop it, because what can happen is somebody could pass and probably bump the switch and put it back on while you are there adjusting the blade or whatever it is. So you're supposed to stop it and unplug it, adjust the blade, and then put back in your plug, and then put on your and continue doing whatever you're doing. He didn't do that. He put his hand below the table while the saw was running to try to adjust something, not the blade, but something below there. And his fingers, he lost 2 or 3 fingers. And there was somebody else there working, and they saw more than one person, and they saw what he did. So they knew upfront that they were going to lose that lawsuit. So if they could have badgered us or badgered me, because his sister was a police officer, if she could have badgered me and pressured me using her role as a police officer, they were thinking probably they could get some money. But that kind of unnerved me when she threatened me, and that I was like, we were so good to him. Even though he's not a permanent employee, we have been so good to this man over the years. Why would you have your sister, and you're 50 something years, or maybe it's about 52 at the time or something, why would you have your sister call and cuss me out and insult me and threaten me? Why would you do that? But then I just dropped it because I had work to do, right? So I dropped it. Then the other thing that happened was my mechanic was fixing my transmission, fixing my engine. I think it was my engine or my transmission, one out of the two, my transmission. And he dropped a tool in my engine and damaged my engine, and he didn't tell me, and just called me and told me, oh, your engine is working. No, my engine was working. I drove my car to his shop to be serviced. And so this was going to cost me $20-something thousand to replace the engine and the transmission now. And I was like, that same day on work, and I was just like holding my head, like, what is happening here? So that's the next thing. And I'll probably need to, in the description, list these things. Now, these are not hard and fast. It's different for everybody. But over the years, as I've listened to people's testimony, people's story of going through wilderness season witchcraft attacks, a lot of these things are consistent. These are just, a lot of these things are consistent ingredients in that situation. So then there's this thing where your finances are attacked as well, right? So that'll be number 2. So your finances are attacked. So here it is. My car was just supposed to have the transmission or whatever changed. It was supposed to be about $10,000 or $11,000, and now he damaged my engine, and it's costing me 20 something. I think it was $24,000 total now to fix this. And I was like, what did you do? And he's like, I didn't do anything. He was lying. But I found out afterwards when I went to the shop, because somebody who was there told me what happened, right? So then there's the attack on your finances. Then when that happened that day, I worked late until after 7, assisting my boss with assisting my boss with the preparations for board meeting the next day that they were having at a hotel. So I stayed until after 7. Then I got in my vehicle. I came home and I felt fine. I didn't think anything was weighing on me, because I was a praying person, and I was also somebody that worshiped God. So I was just like, all of this would work out. And I guess, again, maybe it's pride that I just kept thinking things would work out for me because I'm standing in the right place. I don't know. But when I got home that night, I went and I sort of changed. Now, my channel is for adults, right? So I just changed down to my undies and my little camisole. I live alone, as I said, so I came out into my kitchen to make a cup of chamomile tea just to calm down from the day and to go have a nice warm shower and then get ready to do any kind of studying that I could do while my cousin is making her noise. And trust me, she did it. It was random, so most time it just jumped me. It just scared me whenever she would start. And then once I realized it's her, I would kind of calm down and then I'll go to sleep. I'll just try to lie down or something because there's no studying when she starts. So as soon as I started to make my cup of tea, my body felt like it was shutting down. And it started from my legs, and the way I can describe it, like when they shut those lights off in those big buildings, you see them coming off in levels. The light comes off in levels. That's how I felt. As though my body was shutting down, different parts of my body were shutting down. And I was like in a race against time to get things ready before that happened. So immediately I stopped making tea, ran inside, grabbed a bag, threw my Bible in a bag, sorry if you're hearing noise in the background, that's my neighbor. And no matter when I do this video, trust me, even at midnight, it could be worse sometimes because there are people playing music, like really loud, despicable music at all hours. All of these are things I want to talk about when I'm talking about the last days. And I'll do a video about that sometime, but it's really ridiculous. So there's no good time to do a video here. So, all right. So okay, fine. Where was I? So I ran and I got a bag, put my Bible in it, put her underwear in it, put some clothes, because immediately in my head I knew I had to go to the hospital. Then I ran back, I got my phone and I called an ambulance, and I was speaking really fast, explaining to them, so this is what I'm feeling, that's what I'm happening. In my head I'm thinking I'm having a stroke. The reason for that thought is because my father just had a stroke, as I said, in 2014. That took him about 2 years to get to the point where he could speak and use a toilet himself and all of that, because all of the different parts of his brain was damaged with that stroke. But before that stroke happened, he was very healthy. So because I know he was healthy, now I'm thinking maybe that's what's happening to me. So I packed my bag. As I said, I called the hospital, or called for an ambulance, explained to them what was happening, and then I called my mom and I told her. And I went outside, I opened up my house, and I went outside and I sat down to wait for the ambulance to pick me up. I didn't want them to have to try to get inside, because then they'll have to get you in my front door, the locks in my front door, and then get you the gate, because I have a security gate in my house. So I didn't want them to have to go through all of that to get to me. So I just opened up all of the doors and just sat outside and just said I'll wait until they come. My mom could always stay back and lock up for me or whatever it is. But anyway, I ended up at the hospital. The ambulance came, ended up at the hospital. Now, this is a really sad part, because when I got to the hospital, I got a message from my pastor saying that one of the doctors working in the emergency at the hospital, the emergency room at the hospital, was a member of our church, one of the brothers from our church. So I felt like, okay, that was a good thing, right? It didn't mean I didn't have to wait my turn after the ambulance brought me in, because we all understand triage and how that goes. Whether you come in first, it doesn't matter. It depends on what you come in first with, what is your issue. So I waited maybe about 3 hours or something to be seen, and then finally, when I was seen, he was one of the doctors that saw me, and he made it his business to see me because the pastor asked him to, along with another colleague of his. And he didn't treat me like he knew me from church or I was a sister. No, churches have cliques. I was not in their clique. I did not belong to any clique, because when I became a believer very young, as a tween, like probably age 11, but I always loved Jesus from very small. So when I got saved at age 11, got baptized at age 14, don't ask me why it's so late. I'll tell you anyway. It's because in our church, they always said they want a child to be old enough to make that decision. They don't want people too young doing it. But now, since I've been in church all my life, we've had 7-year-old, 8-year-olds getting baptized, because they know what they want and they want to be saved and they want to be baptized. Right? So, but anyway, so being a believer all my life, I came to a certain understanding of the Word of God and also of God. Not fully right, because, and you'll know that because of things that I'm going to say, but I don't like the idea of cliques in church. I do understand that people who have things in common may get together more often or talk more often, but that separation of I'm not going to speak to you because we are the doctors. So this little section of the doctors, and we hang out together and we engage the doctors, but we'll talk to the pastor and the people closest to the pastor because he's the pastor and his wife and whatever. So I knew they belonged to a clique, but when it comes to medical issues and when it comes to being a brother or sister in Christ, I was at least thinking that I would be treated decently. And in any case, him being a Christian meant that, let's just say, the rest of the doctors attending to people weren't very pleasant or they weren't very compassionate. He should have been, because he was a believer. But when I saw him, he wasn't. And he scared me even more, because when he looked at my results after I had my ECG, echocardiogram, right? So it's the ECG, not the EKG. He blurted out, "Oh my God, look at this. This is really bad. This is really bad." And I'm sitting there thinking I'm having a stroke. And he had mentioned that as well. It could be a stroke. And they did some tests. I think they make you put out your arm and they do certain things, right, to test if you're having a stroke. But then he just kept saying, "Look at this. This is really bad." And I'm sitting there and I'm getting more and more scared, because now on top of a stroke, apparently my heart is bad. And then he went like, "You know what? Do this over. I want to see. Just go do this over." And they sent me to do over the ECG. So when I came back, I had to wait again. And then he said to me, this probably is about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning by now. Or after 12 in the morning by now. He said, "Okay, so you're not having a stroke. It's a panic attack." And I'm like, "What? A panic attack?" That's what he said. "And we're going to give you a shot for it." And they put me in a room and they gave me a shot on my behind. And I think it was Valium. The thing about it is he didn't explain to me what to expect with a panic attack, that all of the feelings of going numb, the feeling of dread that overcame me when my body felt like it was shutting down. He didn't explain any of that to me. He just said, "You're having a panic attack." And I was like, "A panic attack?" I had a panic attack before and it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. I had one when I was like in my 20s, a few years before, so this didn't feel like a panic attack. And that panic attack I had when I was in my 20s was when my father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And again, I was a very integral part of that, because I'm a first child, first daughter, not married, don't have any responsibility. At least people think so. All you do is work and you're supposed to take care of all their business, right? You don't have a life. Well, for 4 years after he was diagnosed, that's all our life was about, because I lived at home still. It was about him. And my father is not the type of person that puts anybody before, any family, immediate family, before himself. It's me first, me second, me third. And so it didn't matter to him that I was young and I had a life or whatever it is. He would just, when I'd get home from work at night, he would just be like, "Oh, I'm not feeling well. This is something. I want to go to the hospital." I'm like, "Okay, fine, I will take you to the hospital, but we need to go to a nearby hospital." And then he'll go like, "No, he wants to go to a hospital 15 miles away, right? 15, 20 miles away. That's where I prefer to go." So then after going to my first job, my second job at the time, I had 2 jobs, and coming home at night, after 9 at night, I have to drive you 20 miles back in the direction where I came from, and then sit until 2, 3 in the morning, then come home and get ready for work again. And this happened frequently. And on one occasion, I was out with my mom and I was driving and I had a panic attack while driving. I didn't know that. I drove myself to a private hospital and they checked me out, and the doctor told me I was having a panic attack, but it was different. When that happened, I was having serious heart palpitations, and I was basically, my heart was just racing. This situation that I encountered in 2017, my body felt like it was shutting down. My mouth was dry, and my face, half of my face was numb, felt like it was numb. So I was like, a panic attack, maybe he's wrong. But anyway, he gave me the Valium, and when I got home in the morning, I went to my parents' house. I felt like this thing was happening to me again, and I was like, how could this be a panic attack? So that was number one. When my health started to fail me, not number one, sorry. So I already went through conflict, lawsuits, exhaustion, and now we're at number four, where my loss of health. Because that morning, when I didn't really sleep, but then when I kind of like probably slept for maybe an hour or something, got up, that feeling came over me again, and as though I couldn't breathe, and I felt like I was going. This is a whole situation, and I ended up at a private hospital, admitted at a private hospital. The hospital I went to before was a public hospital, so I ended up admitted there. So now I'm there, and I'm not going to go through the details because then I have to do my testimony. But anyway, because I ended up at the hospital, and because of how that went, I ended up at home. And when I ended up at home at my parents' house, I started to get worse and worse. I couldn't. I started to have inordinate fears, meaning I was afraid of like food. I didn't want to eat. I was afraid to go to the shower because I thought I would drown in the shower or I'll fall and hit my head and die. I didn't want to go. One of the worst ones was I didn't want to come back to my home here because I thought I would die if I entered my house. No, I wasn't paying attention. One of the things my cousin told me was I would leave here dead. I'm not going to leave here alive. And she also told me that I would leave her living on this property. Now, there wasn't any dispute for property. None of us, we both know the property wasn't ours. I wasn't going to dispute it. I didn't want to be here anyway because that's what I was working towards. I wanted to have my own home. I wanted to be married. I wanted to be a proper helpmate, meaning I knew the sort of area I wanted to live in, and I didn't want to just put that on somebody and go like, oh, you have to come put in money for me to live here. I was earning, and I knew I could assist with getting what I want as well, because where I would move next at that point in my life is also where I would raise my child or children. So I wasn't going to be fighting for this property. I didn't want it. Where I live belonged to my mom, right? And the other parts belonged to her siblings. So there wasn't any family dispute over property or anything like that, right? But yeah, so I ended up being home and I ended up losing my job because for the next 4 months I was in and out of hospitals doing MRI, CT scans, and the doctors were confused because I was getting worse. I started to lose weight. I couldn't sleep. And while I was at my parents' house at night, I would saw figures coming into the room and telling me I would die. So that's another thing that happens when you at the outset, or maybe it's just a part of, right? If you're going to have like a really tough wilderness season, like one that Joseph went through, or one that David went through, where he was running from Saul, where his men wanted to kill him when they lost their families, when their families were taken from them by I think it was the Philistines that took their family. So David really went through it, and as well Joseph really went through it. So there's no telling when during your wilderness season these things would actually occur. But as I said, they're all ingredients of a wilderness season, because there's no way in the natural you could just end up in the middle of a conflict that you didn't start. Lawsuits, your health, exhaustion. What's going on with me? Exhaustion. And then of course I lost my job because I couldn't go back out to work. And when they would phone me, say you're coming back out, I was weak. I couldn't stand for very long, sit for very long, so I couldn't go back out to work. And that grieved me, and I was praying and I was begging God, please let me get better. I need to get my job. Meanwhile at church, life was going on. My pastor came to see me and he told me that I was under spiritual attack. Like different people had attacked me, and I was like, why would different people want to attack me? I didn't do anything to anybody. That's not who I am. If I offend somebody by saying something or by just being me, fine. But I never set out to offend anybody or hurt anybody, because I absolutely believe what you sow, you reap, right? I had a very long discussion on radio about that very topic, sowing and reaping, that people always thought it's just about, some people, not everybody, it's just about money or about some people took it actually literal sewing food or whatever it is. However, I knew that wasn't what it meant. That wasn't all it is. It's also what we sow, right? What we put out there into the world, how we treat people, we also reap that, right? So I wasn't doing that, but I lost my job and I couldn't come back to my house because I was fearful that I would die. I did have to come and to get clothes, but as soon as I opened the front door, this overwhelming fear took me, and I felt like I wanted to scream and scream and scream and scream, and I would just hold it inside. I just locked by the door and I ran, went back to my and just left. I couldn't deal with it. I had gotten back my car by then. I had gotten back my car. It wasn't long after, just before I got sick. Because within between the month of March into April, end of March into April. Yeah. Another thing that happened is loss of family support, right? Because you think like you're good to your family, you're integral part of your family, everything's all good, you're lime sometimes. You have weddings, you have christenings, you have funerals, and you're there, you're part of it, everybody loves you, you love them. But I learned that is not true. Most people did not love me or like me. As a matter of fact, one of the things that happened when I was sick is they were hoping I died. That was something difficult to handle. I'm okay with people not liking me. Like, I was totally okay with that. Especially strangers, I don't really care. But family, actually hearing that there are people who wanted me dead, I didn't know how to process that. I didn't know how to feel about that, because I was like, these are people that I helped. I helped their children, which were my younger cousins. Our family is pretty young. You know, there's some really old families, but our family's like pretty young. So I lost family support because when I was at home sick, nobody came to see me. Nobody really tried to assist or anything like that. It was kind of like, I should have known, because when my cousin was giving me a difficult time, I did ask for help and nobody showed up. So that's another thing, loss of family support. One of the things that I was worried about while I was sick is loss of dreams and goals that I had, because I'm a stickler for time and setting goals. I've always been that type of goal-oriented person, but I would always go to God and pray and say, Lord, I'm doing this, so I want to do that. Are you okay with it? Show me a sign if you are not okay with it. None of the things I wanted to do in my life was contrary to the word of God, so I always just felt he was okay with it, right? Go study. I was studying law at one time, so go study law, work at this company, give money to this charity, buy this thing, do that, go to this event, and not feel like I should go. Different things like that. I want to get married. I felt he said yes. I knew he said yes because I didn't come up with it first. But while I was there lying down in bed, I knew I was dying, but I was just like, how could I die and not finish my assignment here on earth? That's so unfair. But also, one of the things that I did not give up on God. I didn't curse God. I repented of anything that I may have done and I missed, because by then I was thinking like, this is the devil and he had some loophole. One of the loopholes he had was anger and hurt, because I was angry that my family didn't talk to my cousin about harassing me and threatening to kill me. And just before I got sick, she brought a warlock to live there. And I told my aunt, who's a pastor who lives abroad, and she shrugged it off and said she'll pray for her niece. I'll tell you in a subsequent video why she said she'll pray for her niece. Because, as Christians, there are certain things that we shouldn't allow in, that the world deals in, that the world allows. But we should never allow racism, colorism, prejudice, and things like that to inform our decisions. And with a lot of people in my family, that is a big thing, like how light skin you are, how straight your hair is, so it doesn't matter what you do, how disrespectful you are. It doesn't matter if you have those characteristics, light skin, curly, very long curly hair, or mix it, whatever. Yeah, you could cuss anybody, threaten to kill them, and do whatever you have to do. All we have to do is pray for you. We don't have to ask you to behave better. And then what we'll do too is send you lots and lots and lots of gifts, which is what they did. And I felt it was like rewarding her for threatening me, rewarding her for doing the things that she was doing to me. So I also started to feel some betrayal from people who I was close to in my family, and they didn't stand up for me. My father being one of those. So let me just, before I end this video, go through the list without giving an explanation. 1, conflict. 2, lawsuits. Exhaustion. Loss of health. Loss of my job. Loss of family support. And betrayals, and a sense of a loss of your dreams and your goals. And that is a reality, because while you're sick, you're not achieving anything really. You're just trying to live and you're trying to survive. You're trying to stay alive, right? And panic attacks. Panic and anxiety attacks and inordinate fears. You'll also suffer accusations, because one of the accusations that was hurled against me was I wasn't a real Christian, or I wouldn't have to be fighting this battle and fighting for my life like that, especially since the doctors didn't find anything wrong with me, and it had to be my head, which I never had mental issues before, but it had to be my head, and so I wasn't a real Christian. That was something that my father said to me while I was staying at their house, and that hurts, because I very much love Jesus, and I believed he loved me, and I couldn't understand what was happening. But it wasn't that. It wasn't because I wasn't a good Christian that I was suffering like that. So these are just some of the things that would happen before and during your wilderness season. I would go into I made a note about the exhaustion. You never feel rested. Even though you get sleep, when you do get sleep, you still don't feel rested. And your spirit feels unsettled. So even though I was praying, even though I was worshiping God, I started to feel unsettled. Also because that warlock was there. I wasn't afraid of him. When he came, I phoned my aunt and told her, look, she brought this person here to live on the property. But as well, we had a rule, right? Because like it's a Christian family, right? I forgot, air quotes, Christian family, right? They're Christian in one way. And pretensive. So I knew, 1, I couldn't bring any men here, and that was the same rule for my cousin, even though she wasn't a Christian. So that was my concern, this man being on the property, because basically we did whatever we wanted. There were women, right? And he was intimidating me. He came down in his underwear to my home and to tell me that he wasn't getting water to take his shower. And this is somebody I don't even know your name. That's my cousin, and I weren't speaking. But he wanted to intimidate me. And he had this long beard, and I was all dressed for work walking on my front door that day, and he came to me and said that. And then he followed me all down my stairs when I was going to my car, and I was like, I can't help you because I didn't cut off the water. That water situation it's a usual thing in our area. Water would go. And then we had a pipe, right? I mean, that was right in front. They had a leak, and they needed to come, and our water authorities needed to come repair it, and they usually took their time. So they didn't come to repair it, and so we weren't getting enough water on the property. And he could see that because you were seeing the water spouting out of the leak, but he just wanted to intimidate me, so he kept walking behind me down. He said very close in his underwear, boxer shorts. And you could tell he just got up. It was early in the morning, as I said, I was going to work. And fortunately, a neighbor was passing, and the neighbor said to me, when we get in water, I don't understand the situation. When we get in water. And I said, I don't know, because I don't have any idea, and it's about going on 2-3 days now, whatever it is. When the neighbor said that, he turned around and he walked away, and I was questioned, what was he going to do to me if the neighbor didn't just pass by and ask that question, right? So I will see you in my next video, where I would start to talk about exactly what transpired during my wilderness season, because it was a period of 7 years. And please stay with me. I wish I could make it shorter, but I really want to get in depth in this because I do want to help somebody. I feel like if I had people talking to me at the time, or people who had gone through the experience explaining me what was happening, walking me through it, it may not have been as bad as it was. I mean, I walked through successfully. I didn't curse God. I didn't walk away. I became angry after my will. I'll tell you from when, right? When I do my testimony. But at the beginning in 2017, 2018, I wasn't angry at God. I understood that these things happened. But there are things, and the way it happened and the way I handled it, there are times I should have prayed more. There are things I should have prayed about that I didn't know I needed to pray about, because like things like altars, I didn't know anything about things like altars. I didn't put much stock in witchcraft. I didn't think it could touch you, do anything to you once you are a Christian. And so I want to save people from going through that. Sometimes our lack of knowledge, God said, the Bible said, our lack of knowledge is why we perish, we as his people perish. And while I didn't perish, I didn't end up dying. I lost a lot of my time, and I say like I lost my life, because a lot of things that I wanted and believe for, and even the way I lived my life as a young woman, a young lady from my teens up, the decisions that I made was to ensure that the things that I wanted I got. Because there's certain things they would say, if you live in certain lifestyles, how do you expect God to help you and assist you and bless you with certain things? And so, like I look back and I just go like, such a waste, some of it. But if I could help people navigate through this, because it was really difficult, really harrowing, and I lost everything. Just to tell you, I never got back a job in the corporate world. I've never worked outside my home since 2017. Never got back a job like that, because I ended up with certain physical, like permanent physical issues after my wilderness season that barred me from going back out to a full-time job. And if I could help you, or help anybody, especially you women, young ladies, and one of the saddest things, I wish my wilderness season had started when I was much younger, like my mid-20s or something, because I felt I would have had more time to bounce back and do the things I wanted to do, be the woman that I wanted to be. And one of the things that was really important to me, always wanted to be married and have a family. And when it did happen, between 2017, 7 years, took me into territory where, as a woman, these things become more difficult and just more challenging. And I didn't want to have to trust God for a miracle. I just wanted to live my life in certain areas of my life, just have things happen. So just stick with me as I do my subsequent videos talking about my 7-year period in the wilderness. I hope it blesses you. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my other videos. Please remember to leave a comment below if this blessed you in any way.